Welcome back everybody for another in my aviation history series. Now this video will be the first in a new set of videos where I will be going over the history of the RCAF. Now this video will be a basic overview of the RCAF from the beginning of World War II to the present, but will also include a quick history of the service before the war, including the pre-war squadrons, and then I will have other videos coming out later that will go over a detailed history of each and every 400 series squadrons. I will, for the most part, not talk about the Royal Canadian Navy aircraft, although I may do a series on those units in the future. But before we get into this, as always, my name is Sean, and this is Sean's Aviation. And just before we get into the video, something I should have been doing a lot more up till now, and that is just asking you guys out there, if you enjoy what you're looking at, if you like what I'm doing, go down below, click on the like page, subscribe to my channel, and by all means please click on that little notification bell. If that way you guys get alerted when I do get more new content up. I usually try to do the what's on my desk monthly update beginning of the month. And I usually try to get a video or a series of videos released by the 15th, the middle of the month. So whether that's going to be a tips and tricks video or an aviation history video or my time-lapse videos of the previous model builds that I've got done, or an air show video, or some of my new product review videos I'll be doing. So I'm going to try to get something posted by the middle of the month. So please, if you're enjoying this, subscribe, like, and click that notification bell. Let's move on to the video. Now the RCAF of the pre-World War II era was a very small force and began life as the Canadian Air Force in 1920, formed out of what was left of a two-squadron Canadian force from World War I. In 1923, it was given the sole responsibility for all aviation in Canada, including civil aviation, fulfilling the role currently handled by Transport Canada. In 1924, it was granted a royal title, officially becoming the Royal Canadian Air Force, although most of its work was still managing the civil use of aircraft. In the late 1920s, it began to grow the military side of the organization, but budget cuts put that on hold after the stock market crash and the onset of the Great Depression. As the 1930s progressed, the RCAF slowly grew, and in 1938, the officer in charge of the RCAF became directly responsible to the Minister of War, making the RCAF a separate force equal to the Army and Navy. At the outset of World War II, in September of 1939, the RCAF began to expand exponentially to fulfill the needs of combat units. So I will start this by going through the pre-war units that, for the most part, have no direct lineage with any of the modern squadrons, and I will be going through them in numerical order. So we'll begin with, obviously, the aptly named Number 1 Squadron. And this was formed on September 21st of 1937 from the fighter flight of Number 3 Bomber Squadron. Now it stood up at RCAF Station Trenton with Siskin fighters. And in August of 1938, it was moved to Calgary, and later February of 1939, it was re-equipped with Hurricanes, the RCAF's first monoplane. And we'll see a little later what that happened with Number 1 Squadron when we get into the World War II section. So moving on, we have Number 2 Squadron. And this was formed on April 1st of 1935 at RCAF Station Trenton, equipped with the Armstrong Whitworth Atlas biplane. It relocated to Rockcliffe on June 17th of 1937, and on August 26th of 1939, it moved to the East Coast, based jointly out of St. John, New Brunswick, and Halifax, Nova Scotia, and patrolled the Bay of Fundy. On November 1st of 1939, it was moved back to Rockcliffe and re-equipped with Lysanders for the move to Europe. On December 16th, due to a lack of aircraft, Number 2 Squadron was disbanded, and the personnel were split between 110 and 112 squadrons, and we'll see those squadrons in a little bit. So Number 3 Squadron was formed on the September 1st of 1935 as a bomber unit at RCAF Station Trenton. Now, after a rocky start due to aircraft and personnel shortages, it began operational life on April 7th of 1937 with Westland Wapiti's bombers and Siskin fighters. On June 17th, the bombers relocated to Rockcliffe while the fighters stayed in Trenton, eventually being spun off as an independent unit, as we saw above, number 1 Squadron. In October of 1938, 3 Squadron relocated to Calgary, then relocated once again on August 26 of 1939 to Halifax. With the outbreak of the war, the unit was tasked as an air striking force if any German surface forces appeared off the Canadian shores. The unit was disbanded on September 5th of 1939, and its personnel and aircraft were sent to number 10 Squadron. Moving on to number 4 Squadron. This was formed on January 17th of 1933 at RCAF Station Jericho Beach in Vancouver, British Columbia as a bomber reconnaissance unit, but used mostly for civilian purposes such as forest protection, customs, and fishery inspections, as well as aerial photography. It was equipped with the Fairchild 71 aircraft. On September 10th of 1939, the unit was mobilized for war, relocating to RCAF Station Tofino on Vancouver Island, and began training as an anti-submarine unit. It was gradually upgraded with new aircraft, first with the Blackburn Shark, then the Supermarine Strainerer, I cannot pronounce that properly, and finally the Catalina Canso. It was based in Tofino for the duration of the war. Now, there were some of these home units that did keep their old designations. They never received the 400 unit designation, and you'll see a bit more of this history as we move on. Number 5 Squadron was formed at Dartmouth, Nova Scotia on April 16th of 1934 as a bomber reconnaissance unit. It was equipped with Fairchild 71 aircraft, but similar to number 4 Squadron, it was used mostly for civilian purposes such as forestry protection, customs, and fishery inspections, and aerial photography. At the outbreak of the war, it was retasked with anti-submarine duties and equipped, similar to number 4 Squadron, with Supermarine Strainer aircraft and then the Catalina Cansos, and flew those to the end of the war. It was credited with sinking U-209 on May 4th of 1943. Number 6 Squadron, formed on March 4th, 1939 at RCAF Station Trenton as a torpedo bomber squadron equipped with the Vickers Vedette before re-equipping with Blackburn Sharks. It was relocated to Jericho Beach, British Columbia in November of 1938. And on September 10th, it was mobilized for war, September 10th of 1939, it was mobilized for war and began patrols over the Straits of Georgia, eventually being redesignated as a bomber reconnaissance unit. The squadron was based at a number of locations along the west coast and was re-equipped with Norseman float planes, later Supermarine Strainer, and finally the Catalina Canso, which they flew to the end of the war. And this brings us to number 7 Squadron. It was formed on January 29th of 1936 at RCAF Station Rockcliffe from a number of other small units based there. It was designated as a general purpose unit and flew Fairchild 71 and Belanca pacemakers. It was stood down on September 10th of 1939 to allow its personnel to help build strength in the units more needed for wartime operations. Number 8 Squadron was formed on February 14th of 1936 as a general purpose unit at Winnipeg. It was relocated to Rockcliffe in February of 1937. It was equipped with Fairchild 71, Belanca pacemakers, and Vickers Vedettes. With the outbreak of war, it was moved to Sydney, Nova Scotia, and redesignated as a bomber reconnaissance unit and equipped with Northrop Deltas and Bristol Bolingbrookes. In December of 1941, it was moved back to the west coast and eventually Anchorage, Alaska, to help protect the Aleutian Islands against the Japanese. It moved back to BC in March of 1943 and, equipped with Venturas, spent the rest of the war patrolling the west coast. Number 10 Squadron formed October 5th of 1932 as an Army Cooperation Squadron at Toronto and flew most likely Moth aircraft. Information from some of these early squadrons can be sketchy at best. On November 15th, 1937, it was renumbered 110 Squadron, and on September 3rd of 1939, it was relocated to RCAF Station Rockcliffe to convert to Lysender's and began training overseas operations. Its wartime history will be covered in the next section. Number 11 Squadron formed in 1932 as a coastal artillery cooperation unit, and it flew a handful of biplanes, mostly Moths, around the Vancouver area. On November 15th of 1937, it was renumbered 111 Squadron. On June 14th of 1940, it was designated as a fighter unit, but was disbanded in February of 1941, having not received any of the fighter aircraft, and its personnel was needed elsewhere within the RCAF at the time. Number 12 Squadron formed October 5th of 1931 in Winnipeg as an Army cooperation unit, and it started mostly flying the Moth aircraft. It was renumbered 112 Squadron on November 15th of 1937. On September 10th, 1939, it moved to Rockcliffe and re-equipped with Lysanders in preparation for going overseas, and will continue its history a little later in the World War II section. Number 13 Squadron formed as an Army cooperation unit in Calgary on January 1st of 1937, and it was redesignated number 113 Squadron as a fighter unit on November 15th of 1937. On October 1st, 1939, having yet to receive any aircraft, the unit was disbanded. Number 15 Squadron was formed on September 1st of 1934 as a fighter unit in Montreal, Quebec. It began flying in 1936 when it received Moth aircraft. On November 15th, 1937, it was renumbered 115 Squadron, and it was called up to action in September of 1939 when the war broke out and flew Harvards and ferry battles. Number 18 Squadron formed on September 1st, 1934 as a bomber unit at Montreal. It originally flew with Moth aircraft. On November 15th, 1937, it was renumbered 118 Squadron, and when war broke out, it was redesignated as a Coastal Artillery Cooperation Unit and moved to St. John, New Brunswick. It was equipped with Atlas and Lysander aircraft and flew operations over the Bay of Fundy. Number 19 Squadron formed on May 15th of 1935 as an auxiliary bomber squadron in Hamilton. It only began active flying in 1937 with Moth biplanes. On November 23rd, 1937, it was renumbered 119 Squadron, and on the 3rd of September 1939, it went into full-time active service and was moved to British Columbia on January 4th of 1940, equipped with Northrop Deltas. It returned to the East Coast on July 21st, 1940, and spent the remainder of the war there, equipped with Bolingbroke and Venturas, flying over the Straits of St. Lawrence. Number 20 Squadron was formed as a bomber squadron at Regina on June 1st of 1935 and was initially equipped with Moth biplanes. It was redesignated 120 Squadron on November 15th, 1937, and when war broke out, it was moved to the West Coast as a bomber reconnaissance unit. It flew Delta, Hudson, Strainrear, and finally Catalina Cansos on patrols throughout the war. Number 21 Squadron formed as a bomber unit at Quebec City on January 1st, 1937. On November 15th, 1937, it was renumbered 121 Squadron, and when the war broke out, it was disbanded as the unit had not been complete. Number 114 Squadron was formed as a bomber unit on April 1st of 1938 at London, Ontario. When war broke out in September of 1939, the unit was incomplete and was disbanded with no aircraft having been assigned. Number 116 Squadron formed as a Coastal Artillery Cooperation Unit at Halifax on April 1st of 1928. It was redesignated as a fighter unit on May 1st of 1939, and with the outbreak of war, and with the unit incomplete, the unit was disbanded. Number 117 Squadron was formed on April 1st of 1938 in St. John, New Brunswick as an auxiliary fighter unit, and then redesignated as a Coastal Artillery Unit on May 1st of 1939. When war broke out in September of 1939, the unit had not fully completed the transition and was subsequently disbanded on October 28th of 1939. So any units, including the home-based units that formed after the outbreak of World War II, will be covered in the next section, which is World War II. So starting in 1939 on September 5th, number 10 Bombing Squadron, the second iteration of 10 Squadron, a new unrelated unit that stood up at Halifax for anti-submarine patrols, first flying the Westland Wapiti biplane, then the Douglas Digby, and finally the Consolidated Liberator. It was credited with sinking 3 U-boats, U-520, U-341, and U-420 during the war. On October 3rd, number 11 Squadron was formed at RCAF Station Ottawa as an anti-submarine unit flying Lockheed Hudsons, and they relocated to Dartmouth, Nova Scotia on November 3rd of 1939 and spent most of the war on the East Coast, moving to the West Coast in May of 1945. So this gets us into 1940. Starting on February 7th, number 112 Army Cooperation Squadron, which had relocated from Winnipeg to Ottawa, took over the Lysander aircraft from 110 Squadron. February 13th, we have the first RCAF unit heading overseas when the personnel of number 110 Army Cooperation Squadron, having given their licensures to number 112 Squadron, had a full send-off in Ottawa, where it had been based, before making their way to Halifax, then on to England via steamship. May 26th, number 115 Squadron is disbanded at Montreal, and its personnel moved to Dartmouth and were absorbed by number 1 Fighter Squadron. June 14th, number 111 Squadron was formed as a fighter unit at Rockcliffe flying P-40s. It was then sent out west and spent time in Alaska and saw combat there. It was later sent to Europe, which we will see a little later. June 21st, number 1 Fighter Squadron flying Hurricanes arrived at its new base at Middle Wallop, England, making it the first RCAF fighter unit to deploy overseas, although it was left as a non-operational unit for a number of months due to their Hurricanes not being combat ready. June 30th, number 112 Squadron was sent to Europe to be part of the British Expeditionary Force in France, but due to the deteriorating situation on the continent, it was kept in England. July 13th, number 13 Squadron was formed as an operational training unit when the Seaplane Bomber and Reconnaissance School at Sea Island, British Columbia was given squadron status. It flew numerous aircraft, including Vickers Vancouver and Vickers Vedette flying boats, Norsemans, Northrop Deltas, Bolingbrookes, and Cessna Cranes, among others. August 24th, number 1 Fighter Squadron makes the first kill for an RCAF fighter unit, albeit an inauspicious start as they shot down 2 RAF Blenheims from Coastal Command. August 30th, number 12 Squadron was reformed at Rockcliffe as a communications unit unrelated to the earlier 12 Squadron, and was used as a general purpose flight for RCAF headquarters and flew many different aircraft, including the Grumman Goose, Northrop Delta, Boeing 247s, Harvards, Lockheed 10s, Ansons, Dakotas, and Expeditors. This unit stayed operational throughout the war in this format. December 11th, number 112 Squadron was renumbered number 2 Fighter Squadron while based at Digby, England, and was equipped with Hurricanes for coastal defense duties. December 13th, number 118 Squadron was redesignated as a fighter unit and moved from St. John, New Brunswick to Rockcliffe to re-equip with Grumman Goblin biplanes. It moved to Dartmouth in July of 1941, re-equipping with P-40s in November, then moved to the west coast in June of 1942. It was selected to move overseas, which we will talk about in a bit. Now this brings us on to 1941. So the early part of 1941 was a relatively slow period, and really the first thing that happened for the RCAF was on March 1st. So this was a very important day for the RCAF squadrons, because it's when the RAF set out its new format known as Article 15, whereby all Commonwealth squadrons would be based overseas would be numbered in a manner that did not conflict with any RAF units. As such, all overseas RCAF units would be assigned a number between 400 and 449. So it started with number 110 Squadron, having been the first to go overseas, it was renumbered 400 Squadron. Following on with that pattern, number 1 Fighter Squadron became 401, and number 2 Squadron became 402 Squadron. All home squadrons were not numbered in this format and kept the pre-war RCAF numbering system. Just as a small point, one easy way to tell if an RCAF aircraft at the time was a home unit is all home units had a line underneath the squadron code on the side of the fuselage. Small tidbit, but it makes a big difference when you're trying to identify an aircraft. So, also on March 1st of 1941, the first RCAF unit to form overseas, 403 Squadron, was formed at RAF Station Beggington with P-40 fighters. April 15th, 404 Squadron formed at Thorney Island for use in the coastal patrol role equipped with Blenheims. April 23rd, 405 Squadron is formed at Dryfield, England as a bomber squadron flying Wellington bombers. May 5th, 406 Squadron formed at RAF Acklington as a night fighter unit flying Blenheims. If you can kind of see the pattern here, on May 8th, 407 Squadron was formed at Thorney Island as a coastal strike squadron flying Blenheims. June 7th, 409 Squadron was formed at RAF Digby as a night fighter unit squadron flying Defiance. June 16th, 411 Squadron was formed at RAF Digby as a fighter squadron flying Spitfires. June 24th, 408 Squadron formed as a bomber unit at RAF Lindholm, flying Hamptons. June 28th, number 116 Squadron was reformed as a bomber reconnaissance unit at Dartmouth, Nova Scotia. This unit flew Catalina and Canso aircraft over the Atlantic and Gulf of St. Lawrence on submarine patrols throughout World War II. June 30th, number 410 Squadron formed at RAF Ayr in Scotland as a night fighter unit flying Defiance, and 412 Squadron was formed at RAF Digby, flying Spitfires in the fighter role. July 1st, 413 Squadron is formed at Stranraer, Scotland, flying PBY Catalinas in the maritime reconnaissance role. August 1st, number 115 Squadron was reformed as a fighter unit at Rockcliffe for home defense and was quickly posted to the west coast flying Bolingbroke aircraft. It was later redesignated as a bomber reconnaissance unit equipped with Venturas and flew those until the end of the war. On the same date, number 117 Squadron was reformed as a bomber reconnaissance unit at Sydney, Nova Scotia, with Stranraer flying boats. All 117 Squadron personnel were later sent out west and distributed among the various squadrons to bolster their strength, and 117 Squadron was restaffed in November with all new pilots flying the Canso aircraft on patrol over the Atlantic. August 13th, 414 Squadrons formed at RAF Croydon, flying Lysanders in the Army Cooperation role. August 21st, 415 Squadron was formed at Thorney Island as a torpedo bomber squadron flying Hamptons. October 22nd, number 123 Squadron was formed at Rockcliffe as an Army Cooperation unit flying Harvards and Lysanders, and was used to train pilots and Army soldiers in close support and reconnaissance procedures. It was eventually selected for overseas duties, and we'll see a bit more for that in a bit. November 1st, number 111 Squadron, unrelated to the one we talked about earlier, was formed at Rockcliffe as a fighter unit and was equipped with P-40s. It was planned to go to Europe, but with the Japanese attack in December of 1941, it was sent over to the west coast to protect against possible Japanese incursions, and at one point it was based in Anchorage, Alaska. It was later moved to Europe, as we will see in a bit. November 15th, 418 Squadron formed at Debden, England, flying Douglas Bostons in the night intruder role. November 22nd, 416 Squadron formed at Peterhead, Scotland, flying Spitfires in the fighter role. November 27th, 417 Squadron was formed at RAF Charmy Down as a fighter squadron flying Hurricanes. December 8th, number 7 Squadron was reformed at Prince Rupert, British Columbia as an anti-submarine unit flying Blackburn Sharks, Supermarine Stranraers, and finally consolidated Catalinas and Cansos, and served along the west coast of Canada for the duration of the war. December 9th, number 9 Squadron was formed at Bella Bella, British Columbia as a bomber reconnaissance unit flying the Stranraer flying boat, and then finally the Catalinas and Cansos. December 15th, 419 Squadron formed at RAF Mildenhall as a bomber squadron flying Vickers Wellingtons. And finally, December 19th, 420 Squadron was formed at Waddington, England as a bomber squadron flying Manchester Bombers. So as a busy year of expansion, we arrive in 1942. So we start off 1942 nice and early on January 1st, when number 124 Squadron was formed at Rockcliffe as a ferry unit for aircraft movement within Canada. On November 15th of that year, it was split into an Eastern and a Western Division, and the Western Division was later spun off as a separate unit, which we will see a little later. On January 2nd, number 14 Squadron, number 14 Squadron, was formed as a fighter unit at Rockcliffe flying P-40s, but was quickly posted to the west coast to bolster defenses there. It was based at Anchorage for a while to help backstop the U.S. forces there, and it was later transferred to the European theater and renumbered in 1944, as we will see a little later. January 10th, number 121 Squadron reformed as a composite unit at Dartmouth, Nova Scotia by amalgamating a number of smaller units. It flew a number of aircraft such as Boeing 247s, Ansons, Lysanders, and Hudsons, among others. On the same date, number 122 Squadron was formed as a composite unit at Patricia Bay by amalgamating a number of smaller units there, and similar to number 121 Squadron, and flew a similar fleet. February 15th, number 113 Squadron was reformed at Yarmouth, Nova Scotia as a bomber reconnaissance unit with no relation to the earlier number 113 fighter squadron. It flew Hudson's and Ventura bombers on patrols over the Atlantic, protecting convoys. April 2nd, 422 Squadron is formed in Northern Ireland as a coastal reconnaissance unit flying Catalinas. On April 9th, 421 Squadron formed at Digby in England as a fighter squadron flying Spitfires. This was the last RCAF fighter squadron to form overseas. On April 14th, number 132 Squadron formed as a fighter unit at Rockcliffe flying P-40s. It moved to the West Coast on June 4th, 1942, and was used on West Coast air defenses for the duration of the war. April 20th, number 125 Squadron is formed as a fighter unit at Sydney, Nova Scotia with Hurricanes for the defense of the East Coast. It was later selected to head overseas, and we will see more of that in a bit. April 27th, number 126 Squadron was formed at Dartmouth, Nova Scotia as a fighter unit with Hurricanes and was used as an East Coast defense unit until the end of the war. May 1st, number 130 Squadron formed as a fighter unit at Mont-Joli, Quebec, and was equipped with Hurricanes and P-40s. It was used as an East Coast defense unit for the duration of the war. May 18th, 423 Squadron is formed in Scotland as a coastal reconnaissance unit flying Sunderland flying boats. May 19th, number 162 Squadron is formed at Yarmouth, Nova Scotia as a bomber reconnaissance unit flying Cansos. It was later stationed in Iceland and then Wick, Scotland, and had a very eventful career over the Atlantic. I may do a video later on about this squadron, just because it did have quite an illustrious career. May 30th, number 145 Squadron was formed at Torbay, Newfoundland as a bomber reconnaissance unit. It flew Hudson's and Venturas on anti-submarine duties over the Atlantic for the rest of the war. June 3rd, number 133 Squadron formed as a fighter unit at Lethbridge, Alberta. It was equipped with Hurricanes, P-40s, and later Mosquitoes, and used for West Coast air defense. This was also the only Mosquito unit based in Canada. June 15th, number 135 Squadron formed at Mossbank, Saskatchewan as a fighter unit. It flew Hurricanes and P-40s on West Coast air defense for the duration of the war. June 22nd, 425 Squadron is formed at RAF Dishforth as a bomber squadron flying the Vickers Wellington. This was also the first French-Canadian unit formed. July 1st, number 127 Squadron is formed at Dartmouth as a fighter unit flying Hurricanes on East Coast defense. It was later selected to go overseas, and we'll talk about that in a bit. On the same day, number 147 Squadron formed at Sea Island as a bomber reconnaissance unit. It flew Bolingbroke aircraft on anti-submarine duty over the Pacific for the duration of the war. August 28th, number 129 Squadron formed at Dartmouth as a fighter unit flying Hurricanes on East Coast air defense and stayed there for the duration of the war. October 15th, 424 Squadron formed at RAF Topcliffe and 426 Squadron formed at RAF Dishforth, both as bomber units, both flying the Vickers Wellington. October 25th was another important day in the RCAF history, as number 6 Bomber Command was formed, made up exclusively of Canadian bomber squadrons, with 14 units at its peak. While number 6 group was technically part of the RAF, it still marks a major point in RCAF history. October 26th, number 149 Squadron was formed at Patricia Bay, British Columbia as a torpedo bomber unit. It was the only home unit equipped with the Bristol Beaufort and was based in Alaska to counter the Japanese threat. It was later redesignated a bomber reconnaissance unit and was equipped with Venturas. November 7th, 427 Squadron formed at Croft, England. 428 Squadron formed at RAF Dalton, and 429 Squadron was formed at RAF East Moor. All three of these were bomber squadrons flying the Vickers Wellington. November 9th, number 13 Squadron, the Seaplane Operational Training Unit, was disbanded at Patricia Bay, British Columbia. November 11th, 431 Squadron was formed as a bomber unit at Bern, England, flying the Vickers Wellington. This now takes us to 1943. Starting on January 1st, we have 430 Squadron formed as an Army Cooperation Unit at Hartford Bridge, England, flying Mustang Mark Is. On January 23rd, number 164 Squadron was formed as a transport unit at Moncton, New Brunswick, and flew Lodestars and Dakotas. Now, this was the main transport unit for the RCAF and provided trained crews as the nucleus for other transport units when they formed. It was later split into two units in the post-war years, which we will see later. March 1st, number 163 Squadron was formed at Sea Island, BC as an Army Cooperation Unit. It was equipped with Bolingbroke for photography and Harvards for close air support training. It was designated as a fighter unit in June of 1943 and equipped with Hurricanes and later P-40s. April 28th, No. 161 Squadron was formed at Dartmouth, Nova Scotia as a bomber reconnaissance unit. It flew Digby and Canso aircraft on patrols over the Gulf of St. Lawrence for the duration of World War II. May 1st, 432 Squadron formed as a bomber unit at RAF Skipton with Vickers Wellingtons. May 3rd, No. 160 Squadron is formed at Sea Island, British Columbia as a bomber reconnaissance unit equipped with Cansos. It was later moved to the East Coast and was used on anti-submarine duties. June 13th, 434 Squadron formed as a bombing squadron at RAF Thulthorpe, flying the Halifax Mark V. July 13th, No. 165 Squadron formed at Sea Island, British Columbia as a transport unit flying Lodestars and Dakotas. August 15th, No. 167 Squadron formed as a communications unit at Dartmouth, Nova Scotia and used to transport staff around the eastern half of the country. It was equipped with a variety of aircraft, including Ansons, Grumman Goose, Digbys, Expeditors, among others. September 16th, No. 166 Squadron was formed as a communications unit at Sea Island, British Columbia, and used to transport staff around the western half of the country. It was equipped with a variety of aircraft, including Cessna Cranes, Lockheed Electras, Norsemans, and Expeditors, among others. September 25th, 433 Squadron formed at RAF Skipton as a bomber squadron, but did not get aircraft till the end of November, these being Halifax Mark IIIs. October 18th, No. 168 Squadron formed at Rockcliffe as a heavy transport unit. It was equipped with Lodestar and B-17 transports and later Liberators. It was used primarily to move mail to troops overseas, and I do plan on doing a video in the future talking specifically about 168 Squadron. November 18th, 438 Squadron is formed as a fighter unit at RAF Digby when 118 Squadron arrived via ship and was renumbered as per Article 15, eventually being equipped with Hurricanes. December 15th, No. 117 Squadron was disbanded at Dartmouth while equipped with Cansos. And here we can actually begin to see some of the drawdown of the combat units based at the home front. We now go on to 1944, and as you will see, there is still quite a bit of expansion in the overseas units, while many of those home units, as I mentioned, began to disband as the threat of war on the Canadian side of the oceans started to dissipate. So we begin the year on January 1st, when 439 Squadron is formed at Wellingore, England, when No. 123 Squadron arrived from Canada and was renumbered as per Article 15 and equipped with Typhoons. February 8th, a large number of Canadian-based units were transferred to England and renumbered on this date to take part in the European theater. Now, all these units were transferred with personnel only from Canada, and the aircraft were provided by the RAF on arrival. So we have 440 Squadron formed as a fighter-bomber unit when 111 Squadron arrived at RAF Air and were equipped with Hurricanes. 441 and 442 were both formed as fighter units when 125 and 14 Squadrons respectively arrived at RAF Digby, with both being equipped with Spitfires. 433 Squadron was formed when 127 Squadron also arrived at Digby and was also equipped with Spitfires. March 1st, No. 170 Squadron was formed at Winnipeg from the western half of No. 124 Squadron and served the ferry needs for the western half of the country. March 5th, No. 149 Squadron was disbanded at Terrace, British Columbia, while equipped with Venturas. March 15th, No. 119 Squadron was disbanded at Sydney, Nova Scotia, while flying Venturas. No. 128 Squadron was disbanded at Torbay, Newfoundland, while flying Hurricanes. And No. 130 Squadron was disbanded at Gander, also equipped with Hurricanes. No. 147 Squadron was disbanded at Tofino, British Columbia, while equipped with Bolingbrookes. And finally, No. 163 Squadron was disbanded at Patricia Bay while equipped with P-40s. May 1st, No. 120 Squadron was disbanded at Cole Harbour, British Columbia while flying Catalinas. May 15th, No. 13 Photographic Squadron was stood up at Rockcliffe flying Spitfires, Hurricanes, and Mitchells and were used for photographic research flights. It stayed in operation through to the end of the war. August 23rd, number 113 Squadron was disbanded at Torbay, Newfoundland, and number 115 Squadron was disbanded at Tofino, Nova Scotia, both equipped with Venturas. September 1st, number 9 Squadron was disbanded at Bella Bella, British Columbia, while flying Cansos. September 14th, 437 Squadron is formed at RAF Blake Hill Farm as a transport unit flying Dakotas. September 30th, number 129 Squadron is disbanded at Gander, Newfoundland, while equipped with Hurricanes, and number 132 Squadron was disbanded at Sea Island, British Columbia, while equipped with P-40s. October 9th, 436 Squadron is formed in India as a transport unit flying the Dakota, and on November 1st, 435 Squadron was also formed in India as a transport unit, also flying the Dakota. This now takes us to 1945 and the end of World War II. So we begin 1945 on February 23rd. We have 413 Squadron being disbanded at Bournemouth. It had been planned to convert to bombers, but with the war nearing its end, it was no longer needed, and the troops were dispersed among other units. May 5th, Germany surrenders, leading to a mass drawdown in RCAF strength. May 15th, 415 Squadron and 432 Squadrons are disbanded at Eastmoor, England, while equipped with Halifaxes. On May 25th, 404 Squadron is disbanded at RAF Dalaki, while equipped with bullfighters, and number 8 Squadron is disbanded at Patricia Bay, while equipped with Venturas. On May 31st, number 125 Squadron was disbanded at Dartmouth, while equipped with Hurricanes, and number 161 Squadron was disbanded at Yarmouth, while equipped with Cansos. June 4th, 407 Squadron disbands at Chevanor, England, while equipped with Wellingtons. June 9th, 410 Squadron disbanded at Giels Region, Netherlands, while equipped with Mosquitoes. June 15th, number 160 Squadron disbanded at Torbay, Newfoundland, while equipped with Cansos. June 20th, number 116 Squadron was disbanded at Sydney, Nova Scotia, while flying Cansos. June 30th, number 145 Squadron was disbanded at Dartmouth, Nova Scotia, while flying Venturas. On July 1st, 403 Squadron is disbanded at Fassberg, Germany, while flying Spitfire Mark 16s. 409 Squadron is disbanded in the Netherlands while flying Mosquitoes. And 417 Squadron is disbanded at Treviso in Italy while flying Spitfires. July 3rd, 401 Squadron is disbanded at Fassberg, Germany while flying Spitfires. On July 10th, 402 Squadron disbands at Fassberg, Germany, also flying Spitfires. And 421 Squadron disbands at Uddison, Germany, also flying Spitfire Mark 16s. July 15th, number 5 Squadron disbands at Dartmouth while equipped with Cansos. July 25th, number 7 Squadron disbands at RCAF Station Prince Rupert, British Columbia, while flying Cansos. August 7th was a busy day for the RCAF in disbanding units, and we begin with 400 Squadron, which is disbanded at Fassberg, Germany, while flying Spitfire Mark 14s. 414 and 430 Squadrons are disbanded at Lüneburg, Germany, while flying Spitfire Mark 14s. 441 and 442 Squadron, both equipped with Mustangs, were disbanded at Molesworth, England. Number 4 Squadron was disbanded at Tofino, and number 6 Squadron was disbanded at Cole Harbour, both equipped with Cansos. Finally, number 162 Squadron was disbanded at Sydney, Nova Scotia, also equipped with Cansos. As I mentioned earlier, 162 Squadron was one of the most successful anti-submarine units in the RCAF, with 5 submarines sank, one Victoria Cross had been awarded to Flight Lieutenant Hornell during these engagements. And as I mentioned, I do plan eventually on doing a video on number 162 Squadron just to go over some of its exploits during the war. So August 15th, we now have Japan announces its surrender, officially ending World War II. On the same day, number 10 Squadron was disbanded at Torbay, Newfoundland, while flying Consolidated Liberators. August 26, 438, 439, and 440 Squadrons were disbanded at Weinsberg, Germany, all of them being equipped with Typhoons. September 1st, 406 Squadron is disbanded at RAF Predenac while equipped with Mosquitoes. September 3rd, 422 Squadron is disbanded at Bassingbourn, England, while in the process of converting to the transport role flying Liberators. And on September 4th, 423 Squadron, also disbanded at Bassingbourn, England, also in the process of converting to the transport role to fly Liberators. On September 5th, 405 and 408 Squadrons disbanded at Greenwood, Nova Scotia. As well, 419 and 428 Squadrons were disbanded at Yarmouth, Nova Scotia, while 420 and 425 Squadrons were disbanded at Debert, Nova Scotia. 431 and 434 were disbanded at Dartmouth as well. Now, all of these units had returned to Canada in order to train for the war in the Pacific and working up to be part of Tiger Force, which was the RAF and RCAF's commitment to the war against Japan in the Pacific, the bomber units to bomb Japan. And with the end of the war, these were no longer needed. Now, all 8 of these units flew the Lancaster Mark 10, and as we'll see with some of the later histories, these aircraft ended up being put into storage in Canada and were later picked up and flown by the RCAF in the post-war world. September 7th, 418 Squadron was disbanded at Volkel in the Netherlands, flying Mosquitoes. September 10th, number 133 Squadron is disbanded while equipped with Mosquitoes, and number 135 Squadron was disbanded while equipped with P-40s, both based at Patricia Bay, British Columbia. September 15th, number 11 Squadron was disbanded while equipped with the Liberators, and number 122 Squadron with a mixed fleet was also disbanded, both based at RCAF Station Patricia Bay. September 30th, number 121 Squadron is disbanded at Dartmouth, Nova Scotia. October 1st, number 167 Squadron was disbanded at Dartmouth, Nova Scotia, and number 170 Squadron was disbanded at Winnipeg, with the personnel from 170 Squadron being reabsorbed back into number 124 Squadron. This was also, if you remember earlier, the ferry unit that split earlier, and then it remerged again, all back into one unit. October 15th, 424 Squadron and 433 Squadrons were disbanded at RAF Skipton while equipped with Lancasters. October 31st, number 166 Squadron was disbanded at Sea Island. November 1st, number 165 Squadron was also disbanded at Sea Island while equipped with Lodestars and Dakotas. Now, this takes us to the end of 1945, and just to put things into perspective, I'll put up here on the screen the numbers that the RCAF had when war broke out. Now, at the end of World War II, the RCAF was the 4th largest air force in the world, and here's the comparison. With 215,000 personnel and 78 squadrons spread across the world. At the end of World War II, with the wind down of hostilities and the contraction of the Air Force, many units were disbanded, as we have seen, or reinstated as the force was reorganized. It was announced in 1947 that, with very little exception, all RCAF active squadrons would be numbered in the 400 series, and we will go a little farther on here and you will see what happens to these units in the post-war years.
So considering how long this video is already, I'm going to call it here. We'll call this one part 1. I'm going to do a part 2 video that will cover all of the RCAF's squadron activities in the post-war years up to the present. So thank you everybody for watching, and we'll see you soon. Thank you for watching, guys, and as always, if you are interested in any of the content you see, you can access my website at www.seans-aviation.com. You can see all the latest pictures of aircraft and museums and the build logs of all of my current models and past models on that site. And if you're interested in any of this content, please click the subscribe button here on YouTube to follow more. Thank you very much, and see you guys next time.